When my son got sick, I had an important job interview that could change our future. I begged my mother to watch him for just a few hours. She refused, said she wasn't sacrificing her weekend. I lost the interview, lost the opportunity, and realized something painful. I always believed family was supposed to be there for each other. That no matter what, we help each other when things get tough. But that belief? It shattered the day my mother let me down when I needed her the most. It was the opportunity of a lifetime. A promotion at work, one that would finally give me financial stability after years of struggling as a single parent. I had work nights, weekends, overtime, anything to prove I was ready. And now? I had an interview with the regional director. If I nailed it, I would finally have a better future for my son. But then? Everything went wrong. The night before the interview, my son came down with a fever. Not a small one. A real, burning hot, can't breathe right fever. I panicked. I knew I couldn't leave him alone. I wasn't going to be that kind of parent, the one who put work before their child. So I did what I thought was the reasonable thing. I called my mom. And her answer? It broke me. I'm not sacrificing my weekend. She sighed dramatically before I even finished my sentence. Oh, honey, you know I would, but I already made plans. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, it's just for a few hours. He's really sick, and I don't have anyone else. A long pause. Then? She laughed. Sweetheart, I raised my kids. I'm not sacrificing my weekend plans just to babysit. You'll figure something out. And then? She hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone. Not believing what had just happened. My own mother. The woman who always told me family sticks together. The woman who begged me for help whenever she needed something. She had just abandoned me. And because of that, I had to make the hardest choice of my life. I stayed home with my son. There was no other choice. I missed the interview. I lost the promotion. And with it, the financial security I desperately needed. All because my mother, who had always claimed to love me unconditionally, decided her weekend plans were more important than my future. That night, I made a promise to myself. No more sacrifices for people who wouldn't do the same for me. No more bending over backward for family members who only saw me as convenient. And especially, no more helping my mom. She had made her choice. Now, she could live with it. Or so I thought. Because weeks later, she came knocking at my door. And this time, she was the one who needed help. Weeks passed. I barely spoke to my mom after that night. Not because I was angry, but because I was done. I realized something. Family doesn't mean sacrificing yourself for people who wouldn't do the same for you. And she had made it clear. Her comfort was more important than my struggles. So I let her go. Until she showed up at my door. It was a Sunday morning. I was making breakfast for my son when I heard a loud knock at the door. Something about it felt urgent. I opened it. And there she was. My mother. But she didn't look like herself. Her hair was messy. She wasn't wearing makeup. And the confident, dismissive look she always carried? Gone. Instead, she looked desperate. We need your help. I didn't say a word. Just stood there, waiting. She forced a smile. Aren't you going to invite your own mother in? I crossed my arms. What do you need, Mom? She blinked, startled. As if she wasn't expecting me to be cold. Then she sighed. It's complicated. Behind her, I noticed my father standing by the car. And that's when I realized. This wasn't just about her. Something bigger was going on. She cleared her throat. We've run into some issues. Your father's business is struggling, and, Well, the house is in foreclosure. She looked at me, waiting for sympathy. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness. Because this woman? The same one who refused to watch her own grandson because she wouldn't sacrifice a weekend? She was now begging for my help. We just need a little money. She sighed. Look, I know things have been tense, but we're family. We stick together. I almost laughed. Family? Now she wanted to talk about family? I took a deep breath. So let me get this straight. You won't sacrifice a weekend for me, but you expect me to sacrifice my savings for you? She blinked. Sweetheart, it's not the same thing. I tilted my head. Why not? Silence. Because we both knew the truth. It was the same thing. Except now. She was the one suffering. I could have given in. Could have helped her like I always did. But for the first time in my life, I was thinking about me. She had made her choice. And now? It was my turn to make mine. I took a slow breath. And then? I gave her an answer she never expected. I looked my mother in the eyes. She looked back, waiting. Waiting for me to say yes. Waiting for me to save her. Because that's what I had always done. But this time? I wasn't going to. I can't help you. The words left my mouth before I could second guess them. And the second they did, her face changed. The fake smile vanished. The warmth in her voice disappeared. She looked offended. Like I had just insulted her. Are you serious? She let out a forced laugh. Sweetheart, this isn't a joke. I know, I said calmly. Her smile tightened. Then why are you acting like it is? We need you. I exhaled slowly. And I needed you. Her mouth opened, then closed. She knew exactly what I meant. But instead of apologizing, she did what she always did. She tried to flip it on me. You're really going to let your own parents struggle? She asked. I didn't answer. After everything we've done for you? I let out a short laugh. Everything? Like what? She blinked. We raised you. I raised an eyebrow. That's what parents are supposed to do. Her face turned red. You're being selfish. And there it was. The classic guilt trip. But this time, I wasn't falling for it. I stepped forward, keeping my voice calm. You had a choice, Mom. You could have helped me when I needed you. You could have put family first, like you always say. But instead, you chose yourself. And now? So am I. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Because there was nothing left to say. She had made her choice. Now? She had to live with it. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she shook her head. You'll regret this. I smiled. No, Mom. I won't. And then? I shut the door. On her. On the guilt. On the years of being used. And for the first time in my life, I finally felt free. I stood there, staring at the closed door. For the first time in my life, I had told my mother no. No guilt. No hesitation. No second-guessing myself. And yet, my heart was still pounding. Not out of fear. But because I knew she wasn't done. I barely had time to sit down before my phone blew up. First message. I can't believe you're acting like this. Second message. You're turning your back on your own family. Third message. After everything we've done for you, you can't even help us? And then? A message from my dad. You're being ungrateful. Ungrateful? For what? For the years of emotional manipulation? For the time I had to drop everything for them, but they never once did the same for me. I put my phone down. Because I wasn't playing their game anymore. A few days passed. No calls. No texts. I thought maybe, just maybe, they had finally given up. Then, I got a call from my aunt. I hesitated before answering. And the second I did, I regretted it. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice overly sweet. "I just wanted to check in on you." I exhaled. "Aunt Lisa, I know why you're calling." She sighed. "Your mother is heartbroken. She told me everything." "You just cut them off like that? Over a little misunderstanding?" I gripped the phone tighter. "A misunderstanding?" I repeated. "You mean when she refused to help me when I needed her the most?" A pause. Then, she switched tactics. "They're your parents." "Look," Aunt Lisa said, her voice lower now. "I get it. You're upset. But at the end of the day, they're your parents." I clenched my jaw. "And? They made mistakes, sure. But family forgives. You can't just throw them away." And there it was. The same old argument. They can treat me however they want. I'm just supposed to take it. Because they're my parents. I took a deep breath. And then, I gave her an answer she didn't expect. I gripped the phone tighter, already knowing where this was going. Aunt Lisa thought she could talk me into forgiving them. Thought she could make me feel like the bad guy. But what she didn't know, I wasn't that person anymore. Family forgives. I let her words hang in the air. Then I asked, "Does that mean they should have forgiven me when I needed them?" Silence. "Aunt Lisa," I continued, my voice steady, "where were you when I needed help? Where was the whole family when I was struggling to raise my son alone? When I had to choose between my child and my future?" She cleared her throat. "Well, I didn't know." "Exactly," I cut in. "Because no one cared enough to ask." More silence. For the first time, I had the upper hand. "You're going to regret this." Aunt Lisa let out a deep sigh. "Listen, honey, I get it. You're hurt. But you're making a big mistake. You're going to regret cutting them off." I smiled, not out of happiness, but because I finally saw the pattern. Every time I set a boundary, every time I refused to be used, they all said the same thing. "You'll regret it. You're making a mistake. One day, you'll come crawling back." But the truth? The only regret I had was not cutting them off sooner. "Aunt Lisa," I said calmly, "if my mother ever truly needs help, if she apologizes, if she actually takes responsibility, then we can talk. But until then, she's on her own." I could hear the disappointment in her voice. "You really mean that?" "Yes." And then, I ended the call. No arguing. No justifying myself. No guilt. Because for the first time in my life, I was choosing me. But my mother? She wasn't done. Not even close. Cutting my mother off should have been the end of it. But people like her, they don't accept losing control. And when guilt doesn't work, they try something worse. It was late, past 9 p.m., when I heard knocking at my door. Not just a knock. Loud. Repeated. Desperate. I froze. Something in my gut told me exactly who it was. I peeked through the window. And there she was. My mother. My father. 2 suitcases at their feet. I took a deep breath. Because I already knew what was coming next. "We have nowhere else to go." I opened the door but didn't invite them in. She sighed dramatically, like this was hard for her. "We're in trouble," she said. "We lost the house." I said nothing. Dad spoke next. "We just need a place to stay." Just for a while. I crossed my arms. And what happened to all those other family members? Aunt Lisa? Your friends? Mom's eyes narrowed. Are you seriously bringing that up right now? I stayed silent. Because she knew exactly what I was doing. She had turned her back on me when I needed her. And now? She expected me to save her. We're your parents. You owe us. And there it was. Not a request. Not a plea. A demand. We raised you, she continued. Fed you. Put a roof over your head. Now it's your turn. I felt my jaw clench. I took a slow breath. And then? I said something I had been holding back for years. I looked my mother in the eyes, feeling the weight of everything she'd ever done. Every guilt trip. Every moment of neglect. Every time she made me feel like I owed her my life. And this time? I wasn't falling for it. I don't owe you anything. Her face froze. Like she couldn't believe I had actually said it. But I wasn't done. You chose to have kids, Mom, I said calmly. Raising me wasn't a favor, it was your responsibility. She scoffed. Oh, so now you're going to act like we were terrible parents? We gave you everything. I let out a short laugh. Everything? Really? You wouldn't even give me one weekend when I needed you. But now that you need me, I'm supposed to drop everything? My father, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. This is different, he said. We're in real trouble. And that? That was the moment I realized the truth. It hit me like a punch to the stomach. They weren't sorry. They didn't come here because they regretted what they'd done. They came here because they had no other options. And I was just another backup plan. My mother's tone changed. Her voice softened. Sweetheart, we just need a little time. A few weeks, that's all. I raised an eyebrow. And then what? She hesitated. Because she didn't know. She hadn't thought that far ahead. She just expected me to fix everything for her. Like always. But this time? I wasn't saving them. I shook my head. I'm sorry you're in this situation. But I can't help you. My mother flinched. She wasn't expecting me to stand firm. You're really going to let us be homeless, she snapped. I sighed. You had options, Mom. You had family. Friends. Savings. You lost the house because you never thought this would happen. She scoffed. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm just treating you the way you treated me. She opened her mouth to argue. But I was done. I took a step back. This conversation is over, I said. Good luck, Mom. She stared at me, waiting for me to break. But I didn't. And when she realized that, her face twisted with pure anger. This is why no one in the family respects you, she hissed. You're selfish. I smiled. If being selfish means not being used anymore, then yeah, I am. And with that, I shut the door. On her. On the guilt. On all of it. I locked the door and took a deep breath. For the first time in my life, I had set a boundary and actually stuck to it. No guilt. No second guessing. No feeling like I had to fix things for them. And yet, a part of me still wondered, was it really over? Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Mom, 3 missed calls. Dad, 2 messages. I didn't open them. But then, I got a text from Aunt Lisa. I don't know what happened last night, but your mother just told me you kicked them out. Are you serious? I let out a short laugh. Of course. Of course she was running to the family, playing the victim. I took a deep breath and typed back. Did she also tell you she refused to help me when I needed her? Silence. Then? She may have left that part out. Typical. Over the next few days, the family group chat exploded. Some took my side. You can't expect her to drop everything when you never did the same for her. Others attacked me. She's your mother. She took care of you for years. You owe her. And then, my mom herself finally texted. I don't know how you can sleep at night knowing we're struggling because of you. That was the last straw. I took my time before answering. Then, I sent one message. I sleep just fine. The same way you did when you left me struggling. And then? I blocked her number. Not just for the night. Not just for a break. For good. Because I finally understood. People like her. They don't change. And I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life waiting for an apology that would never come. I thought that blocking my mom would be the end of it. That she would finally give up and leave me alone. That I could move on without her guilt hanging over me. But people like her? They don't go down quietly. It had been a week since I blocked her. A week of peace. No texts. No guilt trips. No family drama. Then, late at night, someone knocked on my door. I froze. Because deep down, I already knew who it was. I hesitated for a second before looking through the peephole. And there she was. My mother. Standing on my porch. Alone. I just want to talk. I didn't open the door. Didn't say anything. She knocked again. Sweetheart, please. I just want to talk. Her voice was different this time. Not angry. Not manipulative. She sounded tired. Like someone who had finally realized they had lost. I opened the door, but I didn't step outside. I kept my arms crossed. My face unreadable. She swallowed hard. She hesitated. I didn't expect you to actually cut me off. I tilted my head. You didn't? She sighed. I thought you'd get mad for a few days and then come back. I let out a small laugh. That's the problem, Mom. You never thought I'd actually leave. She shifted uncomfortably. Look, I know I wasn't the best mother. But I never thought you'd. She trailed off. Because she knew what she wanted to say. She just couldn't admit it. She wanted to say. I never thought you'd stop letting me use you. I never thought you'd stand up for yourself. I never thought you'd be strong enough to walk away. But instead? She just sighed. I miss you. I stayed silent. Because now? I didn't miss her. I took a slow breath. You only miss me because you lost control over me. Her eyes flashed with something. Guilt? Anger? I'll never know. She swallowed. So that's it? You're done with me? I gave her the same answer she gave me when I needed her most. I'm not sacrificing my life for you. She flinched. But she didn't argue. Because for the first time, she finally understood. I wasn't her backup plan anymore. I stepped back inside. And then? I closed the door. For the last time. I closed the door. Not just on her. But on everything she had ever put me through. The guilt. The manipulation. The years of being the one who always had to sacrifice. And the second that door clicked shut, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. Did she ever reach out again? No. After that night, my mother never showed up at my door again. She never called. Never texted. It was like she finally accepted what I had been trying to tell her all along. I was done. And I wasn't coming back. What happened to my parents? They lost the house. They moved in with a distant relative. They struggled, just like I once did. But you know what? They survived. Because when they needed help, they found a way. Just like I had. The only difference? I never had a family to catch me when I fell. They did. And that's when I realized. They were never truly helpless. They just wanted me to believe they were. Did I ever regret my choice? Not for a second. Because I didn't just walk away from my parents. I walked away from a lifetime of being used. And now? I have a peaceful life. I have a son who knows what real love looks like. And I never have to wonder if I made the right decision. Because the truth is, I didn't lose a family. I lost people who never treated me like family in the first place. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me.